Have you ever seen a hosted zone that looks very similar to this with prod and non-prod records? In this video, I'm going to show you how you can implement a parent-child DNS zone delegation on AWS so you reduce the blast radius on your hosted zones. When you deploy an application to different environments on AWS, you probably don't run these environments in the same VPC. You probably either separate these environments into their own VPCs or into their own accounts. When it comes to hosted zones, the idea should be the same. So instead of having all of your environment's records in a single hosted zone, you would actually create one hosted zone per environment. Let's start by creating two hosted zones, one for dev and one for staging. And this one that you can see, dojowithrenan.com, that's going to be my production hosted zone. So let's start with the dev environment. So the domain name is going to be dev.dojowithrenan.com. Let's click on create. Let's go back. Now let's do the same thing for staging. So stage.dojowithrenan.com. Let's hit create. Before we can do a little test and make sure that we can resolve these domains, let's create a couple of A records. Let's start with our production environment and let's click on create record set. For the value, I'm just going to copy this example here and paste it. Now let's do the same for dev and for staging. So dev first, let's create a record. The value is going to be, I'm going to take this one. Let's go back and staging. I'm going to choose a random IP. Now that we have a couple of records, let's go to our terminal and see if we can resolve those records. So let's start doing a dig dojowithrenan.com. And this is what I get back. So we see the IP address here. So that worked. Now let's do the same thing, but for the dev environment. You see that I didn't get anything back. We have the question section, but there's no answer section. And the same is going to be for the staging environment. So only a question section. So let's go back to AWS and try to understand why we cannot get any IP address even though we created hosted zones for these two environments. You see that there's no link between dojowithrenan.com and dev.dojowithrenan.com. When I was trying to resolve dev.dojowithrenan.com, even though the domain started with dev, the DNS query is actually going to be sent to dojowithrenan.com. And when the query gets here, you wouldn't see any dev.dojowithrenan.com, so the traffic wouldn't know where to go. And that was the reason why we didn't see any IP address. Let's go back to the terminal so I can show you something very quickly. If I try to dig the name servers of dojowithrenan.com, I can send them all here. But if I try to do the same for the dev environment, again, there's a question section, but there's no answer section. And of course, the same is going to happen with staging. So the first thing we need to do here is to make sure that we can actually get those name servers back. Otherwise, the traffic is never going to get to those hosted zones that we created. In your prod hosted zone, click on create record set. Now the name is going to be dev. The type is not going to be an IPv4 address. It's going to be name server. Now for the value, we need to get the name servers of the dev environment. So let's come here. Let's refresh this. So click on dev. Then click on the name server record. Copy all of these. Let's go back and paste here. For the TTL, let's just copy the same one. Here, and then let's click on create. Let's do the same for staging. So stage, the type again is going to be name server. The value, let's go back. Go to staging and copy all of these four addresses. TTL is going to be the same. And let's hit create. Now that we have these two name server records for dev and staging, we should be able to see them in a terminal. Let's make sure that our production name servers are still being returned. Yep, they are here. Now let's try the same for dev. We don't see any answer section, but it actually takes a while. So let's keep trying. Still nothing. Let's try again. Oh, there we go. So now we got back the answer section for the dev environment. Let's do the same for staging. Still nothing. Let's try again. Nothing. Yep, and there we go. Now that we can see the name server for dev and staging, we should be able to resolve that record that we created in the beginning of the video. And there you go. So we can see the IP address now. Now we have an answer section. And if I do the same thing for staging, boom, there you go. You can also see the IP address. Just to recap, if you're managing domains for multiple environments in the same AWS account, it's better that you create one hosted zone per environment instead of creating all of the records in the same hosted zone, which is probably going to be your production environment. That way, if you want to modify a dev record or a staging record, you run less risk of affecting production because all of these domains, or for all of these environments, they're segregated. And remember, just because you created a hosted zones for your other environments, that doesn't mean that you can actually resolve those subdomains. If you want to create this parent-child zone delegation, you need to make sure that you go to your prod hosted zone and you create name server records for the other hosted zones. I hope you found this advice valuable, and I'll see you in the next network tips video.